Hello, my friends. Hello. Welcome to episode 90. Today we're going to talk about the unpower of fear. So, if you are watching through Facebook Live, if you're watching on my YouTube channel, if you're listening to the podcast, thank you. Thank you. I have loyal listeners, and I am so thankful for every one of you. Lori and Kathy and Pastor Tooze and my mom and Joanne. Thank you for all of you. Gisela, I know you listen. Thank you for listening and being so loyal. I love hearing from you too. So I just want to remind you, however you are listening and tuning in, like it, comment, stay engaged with, and share with me what do you guys want to learn about or hear about. Let's build our growth together. Okay, so today, episode 90, the unpower of fear. Now, we give a lot of power to fear. Think about things that you're fearful of. We really do give a lot of power to fear. Should we? It doesn't have to be that way, and it shouldn't have to be that way. It shouldn't have power over us, right? So let's dive into this a little bit. I wanna back up, and I want to talk about one of my favorite Disney movies called Inside Out. I love the movie, and I think I probably love it because of how much emotional intelligence and thought intelligence and behavioral intelligence is in the movie. I mean, it's our superpowers. So I love how they've created a great way to really understand like how we work. Well, if you haven't watched the movie, definitely get that on your agenda for the weekend. But there are 5 emotions that are portrayed in the movie. So the 5 emotions are joy. She's my favorite. She's in yellow with blue hair. I like her. There's also sadness. Sadness is all blue. Anger. Guess what color anger is? Yeah, anger's red. Then there's also disgust, who's green, and fear. Now, what I find interesting is, according to many medical research areas, including the Center for Clinical Psychology, they list that every human being has 5 basic emotions. Guess what they are? Yeah, they don't call joy, they call joy enjoyment, but otherwise there's also sadness, disgust, anger, and fear. These are the 5 basic emotions within every human being. We all have it. That's also why I love the movie Inside Out. They just do a good job of truly talking about stuff we have within us in a cartoon fashion, right? Okay, so the Center for Clinical Psychology and Inside Out has told us that fear is an emotion. Fear is a feeling. What is fear, really? What is fear? Well, have you ever heard the acronym for fear? The acronym is fear is false evidence appearing real. I love that because it's so true. False evidence appearing real. Have you ever had a fear? I mean, think about when you were a kid. Have you ever had a fear and then you conquered the fear? You did the thing that made you so scared. I mean, think about riding a bike and balancing, learning how to balance. And then of course you have a few tumbles. I remember getting rocks into the palms of my hands because I tumbled in the gravel. We didn't have concrete or blacktop driveway. We had gravel. But then I conquered it. I figured it out. I figured out how to ride a bike. How liberating and empowering is it to conquer a fear? Well, that same thing can happen to us even though we have more adult fears these days, but we can still conquer it. Okay, so get this. I found an amazing article out there in Google land from Northwestern Medicine. They have an article called Understanding the Science of Fear. And they list like 5 things you probably don't know about fear. Number one, I mean, they wrote my book, really. Number 1, they said fear is physical. And they go on to talk about emotional intelligence and thought cycle. In other words, what they really talked about, the guts of what they talked about was the fact that at the base of our brain, we have this little beacon that's always surveying for safety. The beacon technically is called the reticular activating system. Everything that I teach, if you've ever heard me teach about emotional intelligence, you're going to hear about the RAS, because this is a powerful tool. Powerful tool. It does things to us. We don't ask it to do it. It just happens. When it senses danger, it sucks the oxygen out of our brain, and it sends that oxygen power to our extremities, to our hands and to our feet. It not only sucks the oxygen out, but it also creates adrenaline. I mean, when you're scared, you can feel this. You can feel the sensation that's happening, and it's biological, and we can't stop it from happening. In this article, the Northwestern Medicine, this is exactly what they said. I want to give you the technicalities here. They say that fear is experienced in our mind. Okay, I get that. I get that. Like, let's say I'm out walking on a path and a bear walks out in front of us. Yeah, well, this really happened. On our land up north, we were out in the land all day with the ATVs and the chainsaws and the lawnmower. I was out mowing the pieces of the land, and I mean, we were having a great day, and we finally put all that away, and we were having a bonfire, sitting around the bonfire. This was a few years ago, and I look up the path, and a bear, a black bear, walks into the path, and I'm the only one that sees it. I couldn't even get my words out. I mean, my RAS, my reticular activating system, sensed danger, because a bear can do some damage to human beings. Hello. And all I said was, look, a bear. And my whole family, I mean, we're talking my mom, my dad, my husband, my kids, all of them looked back at me. Rather than looking up the path at the bear, they looked at me and said, a what? I mean, they were like picking on me. And I couldn't. I felt in my body how the oxygen was sucked from my brain. And I felt my hands shaking. I felt the adrenaline rush. It was crazy. So when Northwestern Medicine says fear is experienced in the mind, I get it. But they go on to say, but it triggers a strong physical reaction in your body. As soon as you recognize fear, your amygdala, now they're getting really technical, that's a small organ in the middle of your brain, really small, it goes to work. It alerts your nervous system, which sets your body's fear response into motion. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline are released. Your blood pressure, your heart rate increases. You start breathing faster. Even the blood flow changes. Blood actually flows from your heart into your limbs, making it easier for you to start throwing punches or running for your life. Your body's preparing to fight or flight. Yup, that's exactly what I teach, because this is all emotional intelligence. We have to understand what's happening biologically to us. We have to be aware before we can be where. We have to be aware before we can manage ourselves. Okay, so here we do. I teach all the time, but I'm not a scientist or a medical doctor, right? Here we go. Northwestern Medicine has said it, and so have many other scientists. You can definitely go out and you can start Googling and finding the biological science behind fear. Let's take a breath for a moment. That's what's physically happening to us when we have fear. And by the way, our brain doesn't know the difference between seeing a bear in our path or getting a strongly verbalized email. The brain doesn't know the difference. So it's still going to create the same reaction. The cortisol, the adrenaline, the lack of oxygen, or I should say more oxygen in your extremities here. It's still going to happen. So we have a lot of things that we fear that may not be physical, like in front of us, like a bear. Well, Franklin D. Roosevelt, one of the quotes he's known for saying is that we have nothing to fear but fear itself. I was at a conference a few weeks ago, and they said it a little differently, and wow, it hit me. You know, fear is a feeling. It's an emotion. We just said it. I mean, it's one of the 5 basic emotions within every human being's body. Disney did a great job showing that within the Inside Out movie. Fear is a feeling. So, when we look at Franklin D. Roosevelt's quote, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Do we fear our feelings? wow, I fear the feelings that I allow myself to experience. Okay. Well, that kind of puts a little empowerment within me. It can go either way. It can be kind of victim-like, but it's kind of empowering because I can control what I choose to feel based on my thoughts. Okay, so John Maxwell teaches that there are 5 fears that keep us from making a transition toward intentional growth. Now, there's a lot of different fears out there, fear of heights, fear of water, fear of spiders, fear of snakes. I'm not talking about those kinds of fears. I'm talking about fears that cause us to freeze in our growth. Those fears are fear of failure, fear of trading security for the unknown, fear of being overextended financially, fear of what others might think or say, and fear that success will alienate your peers. Those are the 5 fears that John Maxwell really teaches, especially in his 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth book. So, if our fears are false because they're false evidence appearing real, then it's just a thought, right? If you're watching me on Facebook or if you're watching me on the YouTube channel, right behind me here, I have a thought cycle image. I mean, every time I teach, thought cycle is going to come in because there's so much power. This is scientifically proven. This is what happens in our brains. Our thoughts create our emotions or our feelings. That creates our actions or our behaviors. And that creates our result. And the result recreates or reiterates or reinforces other thoughts. The cycle goes clockwise. Cycle is always happening. We think 1 thought per second. There's a lot of thoughts going through our head, right? So following this science, understanding that fear is an emotion, fear is a feeling, fear is also false. Really, it's the story that we're telling ourselves that's responsible for our fear. Ouch. If every thought we have is a neutral circumstance and we choose how to spin the cycle, this is my choice. Every story that I'm telling myself is responsible for my fear. Lao Tzu also said, there's no illusion greater than fear. There's no illusion greater than fear. Illusion, that means it's false, right? Here we are again, false evidence appearing real. So what kind of fears have you conquered? What kind of fears do you need to conquer in your life? Back in 2019, the word that I chose for that year was the word conquer. I had some big goals that I wanted to conquer that year. I had no idea that life was going to take me down a path to also conquer my biggest fear. That was not my intention. I didn't even think about my fears. I didn't even think about conquering my fears. I mean, it just happened. So in September of 2019, I left corporate America. 25 years of working in corporate America for few different companies, and I left to go on my own, to really focus on Unity Consulting and what I can offer to multiple companies, not just one. So the training and the coaching, the online learning programs, the speaking engagements that I do, that's what I wanted. This is what I've always wanted to do. For years, I've always had this passion and vision and dream to be on my own and to really create content that is powerful and empowering to people. I want to challenge their thoughts. I want to give people something that just helps them think differently. Oh, I was doing that. I was doing that in corporate America, absolutely. But when you're working for somebody, you're working their dream. So this is my business, my passion, and really, I'm going to make it or break it, right? Well, that leads right into my fear. My fear in 2019 was trading security for the unknown. Why didn't I go out on my own sooner? Because my fear stopped me. Trading security for the unknown. Can I do it? Can financially we do it? And what are the details? What about insurance? And what about legal side of it? And what about, there's so many what abouts. Well, I jumped right in. And then, you know what, I started creating a website, and I got an LLC created, and I talked to my lawyer and my accountant, and I just started jumping in. And September 1, I jumped in full time and started talking to businesses and started talking to people and getting dates on my calendar to connect with their people, their teams, their leaders. I was cold calling, I was reaching out. And what I found, my fear, it's really no big deal. It's really no big deal. You know, mind you, 6 months after I started full-time Unity Consulting, a pandemic hit the world. Of course it did, right? Well, so I went virtual. So what? And my business boomed. And my fear, the fear of trading the unknown, trading security for the unknown. You know, what was my security? Well, having a paycheck every other week is good security. Having insurance is good security. Just having that job was my security. But I was trading that security for the unknown. And within a few months, I quickly realized the fear's gone. Because the fear is really no big deal. I have it in me to figure this out. I have it in me to not fail. I know this. You know, fear really leads to avoidance. Fear is so toxic within us. It leads to avoidance. I avoided jumping in years ago because of this thought or this story that I've been creating in my head. Fear is false. We know that. It's false evidence appearing real. So, what are your fears? What is keeping you from growing? What's freezing you right now? Because it's your story. Find a way to step forward into your growth. Find a way to hold your breath and jump. Find your way to feel that excitement instead of that fear. Do this in spite of your fear. You're a powerhouse. You're a problem solver. You're a troubleshooter. You have the tools within you to figure this out. You can do this, just like I can do this, just like my kids can do it, my husband, my parents, the people I love. Everybody has it, right? So, a bit of warning though. Once you jump in, once you use those tools that you have within you, you also might find out that fear, it's really no big deal. You're quickly going to conquer it. You're quickly going to be moving forward. You're quickly going to even forget the dynamic oppression that this fear had on you. It's really no big deal. My friends, go be great today. Go be great. Go take some steps forward into that life that you want. Go be great and push the fear aside. It has no power on you. We'll see you next time.